No, there should be 7 tickets. It's okay. I forget when it will. I'll print out I can delete it from our docs. Does it show that we're live? It says that we're live for me. Okay.
Taking notes, bro?
I don't know why it's like yes, it's intimidating. It doesn't like each we're gonna like okay. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We know it means a lot that you guys came after your very busy school day. We know you probably have a lot of homework. If you don't already know, I'm Ayla. I'm one of the BOE co-chairs.
I'm Raymond Yang. I'm also BOE co-chair.
Yes. This is our first of 2 freshman caucus debates. We're super excited to be hosting it because this is our first in-person debate since 2 years ago. It's both of our first in-person debates as well. We're super thankful that so many tickets have been interested in running for freshman caucus this year. Today we have 7 tickets, which means that there are 14 lovely debaters here to share their opinions on how to make our school better. And tomorrow we'll also have 7 tickets. They'll all be different, but if you come back tomorrow, you'll be able to hear different people and perspectives. Okay. So if you are not already aware, you will be able to find info on all of these tickets and all the other tickets on vote.csu.org, which will also be our voting site, which you can use on Wednesday. You can log on to it right now. You can check out information about all the tickets, some of them posting about themselves. It's a great website. We want to thank Abir Tahir, who has graduated last year, but he has been a great resource to the Board of Election and the CSU. Just want to note that no audience questions will be taken, just because we had a form already for that. So if you have any questions, I'm sorry. You can probably ask them to the tickets on your own time, but this will be solely used for questions that we already have prepared. Today we have our 2 debate moderators, Melody and Siri here, who will be asking the tickets questions and keeping everything organized. Anything else we want to add?
Good luck to all the tickets.
Yeah, good luck to all you guys. Thank you all so much. Yeah, okay, we're going to pass it on over to Siri and Melody to get us started.
All right, sure. First things first, we're going to go over some general questions, 90 seconds per ticket, to go over the basic core values of your ticket, what policies you're going to be advocating for. Please try and introduce your ticket in 90 seconds. Let's start with Jahan.
All right, so hi, I'm Tajrian.
Hi, I'm Mahmud.
And so the foundational policies of our ticket really are based on reducing homework down to the ideal 30 minutes that was outlined in the SU handbook, expanding on religious freedom in our school by implementing or designating areas for religious prayer and informing students in regards to that. And another one of our policies include so another one of our policies is introducing culture days into our school so as to educate our students about cultural diversity. And our final policy is to implement forms for students to rant or complain about issues in the school so that we can address them.
moving on to Lin Lin.
Hi, my name is Jahan. And I'm Qiutong. We're identical twins and we make up the Lin Lin ticket. We hope to make everyone's freshman year here as enjoyable as possible by focusing on our well-being and mental health. As current members of the environmental club, we also hope to increase environmental awareness and encourage more environmental projects around the school. In addition to that, we want to educate students on mental illness, suicide prevention, and promote healthy body image. So like some of our policies, just like anonymous student surveys, so we can know like your feedback on teachers, and we want to hear your voice. And if you have any complaints on your teachers, because if we students are always working on to improve ourselves, I think we should expect the same from teachers.
I'm Maddie,
And I'm Anthony.
and our basic policies, like the basic outline is we want to have kind of like a homework anonymous form where like every week you can fill out how long homework takes to make sure that teachers are keeping the 30-minute, and you can tell them what subjects you want to go over more, as well as having like tutoring within the grade, because I know some people find upper classroom scary, and I think it'd be a win-win situation where you can review the material by yourself as well as teaching someone. So it's both a win-win.
We are also doing an inclusive, basically freshman bonding policy. We'd like to host games like the upper caucuses. We would like to host games, movie nights, like league tournaments with the alcohol, any esports, and basically just make the grade more cohesive as a whole.
Yeah, especially because online, like it's been a while since like sixth grade since we were all in a grade together in person. So I think it'd be good if we have freshmen be close and transition better to like in person.
Just want to point out, guys, you should speak up so that both the microphone on the live stream can hear you and everyone in the back room can also hear you as well. So just make sure you protect yourself.
My name is Madeline Goodwin,
And I'm Ayla Irshad.
and we are the Goodwin Irshad campaign. You may know us from Curls for Caucus. And our policies are built on the pillars of experience, accessibility, and representation.
And I think building on the experience, we both have extensive experience from middle school, and I'm currently a part of the SU already as a budget analyst.
And I have a lot of experience in my extracurriculars, holding leadership positions, which I hope to talk about more later in the debate. Some of our policies include Facebook databases, online study groups, and homework policies to help with freshmen transitioning to the new school year, as well as some events.
We would like to unite the freshman class because we know we haven't been in a grade all together since sixth grade, so we think that it's best to unify the class and make it one. So through this, we're going to do this by having movie nights, we're going to have game days, and we're going to implement different events, and we're going to also take freshmen feedback on what events they would like to see happening, because we really want the whole grade to get to know each other and come together as a community.
So overall, we have prepared and we have practical policies to help the freshman class.
Hey everyone, I'm Ryan, and this is my running mate.
Hi, I'm Ethan.
And together we formed the Radwan Sharma ticket. So our ticket is based around 6 pillars, which is first, communication, next, A for academics, next, U for unification, next, C for constitution, U for utilization, and S for stability. Ironically, all 6 of these letters form the acronym Caucus itself. So for our first pillar, communication,
So, as a whole, the freshman body has been disconnected a lot because of quarantine. So it's really hard for people to talk to new people and basically fit in again. So the communication pillar is basically our policy, not really a policy, but us
to make freshmen be able to rebuild their communication skills with one another. And we'll do this by creating hotspots throughout the school, so we can make it at a certain place and everyone can access them. And they'll also be outside because generally outside it's easier to get freshmen to be together. And now moving on to our second pillar, academics. For academics, we want to create study guides, which people can always use. and they'll be created by freshmen, and because who better to like create them than people who do the course itself. Next, we'll be creating group chats because they're always helpful when it comes to academics. And then moving on to our next pillar, unification.
So one of our plans is to create a centralized Stuyvesant freshman Discord server for all of the freshmen, and somewhere there where people can interact with each other and basically get to know each other, because we know a lot of kids that are like socially awkward, maybe doesn't want to approach people, but doing this online would be like a lot easier for people to get to know one another.
Okay, thank you. Next, the Marcus U ticket.
So I'm Josephine Yu.
I'm Zoey Marcus.
And substantially, our ticket is based off of our 4 epic pillars: efficiency, practicality, inclusion, and compassion. And we believe that it's extremely important to maintain and create systems that are as efficient and practical for the school community to use as possible. And simultaneously, we want all students to be able to receive the same excellent resources and quality education. And because of these values, we are focusing our campaign around policies regarding the bell schedule and free periods and resources for students to stay caught up on materials. And we want to improve the overall nature of student life and success through means of better policy regulation and safety.
Okay, so last ticket to introduce. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Khush.
This is the C Wadhwa ticket. Oh, sorry. And my name is Ethan C.
We comprise the Wadhwa ticket. Our foundational ideas are based on the CUBE model, C-U-B-E, where we have connection, unity, balance, and execution. We've heard a lot of great ideas so far from a lot of great tickets, but we also often feel that there has to be some way to implement them that is reasonable and efficient. And that's where the execution part of our ideas comes from. Everything that we outline in our policies document is clear and has a quick, efficient, and meaningful way to implement. Working backwards up to B, balance. It's no secret that Stuyvesant freshmen, especially after a very long online year, are having a difficult time readjusting to an in-person standard, especially a difficult one. So we decided to create some policies that also start to lighten an academic load, but bring back social elements of an in-person life. Moving up to unity. We want to make sure that every single freshman is represented in the caucus. And that doesn't mean that you always have to be attending every meeting or you have to be up to date on every whereabout that's going on in caucus. Your job as a student should be to report anything that you think is a problem to us, and we will take care of it. You shouldn't have to make a full commitment in order to see the problems that you find in the school resolved. So we're very open about creating a direct democracy caucus that we hope will address as many problems that arise throughout the school year. And finally, back up to probably the most important one, human connections. The idea of connecting the freshman body is something that we see always after the pandemic. And since there's been such a lack of social human connections, we hope that as we enter the school year, we can bring about this connection through events, centralized group chat systems, and more. And to read a little bit more about our policies, we've established the Wix website as well as an Instagram page, a Facebook group, where we detail our ideas and how we plan to implement them. That's all.
Thank you. Moving on, what sets you apart from other tickets? Any qualities that make you uniquely suited for this position?
Our 60s. We'll start from the left.
All right, so I think one of the defining factors that I think distinguishes me from other candidates is my extensive experience actually in this field. So I've spent just around 2 years in attending and in the formation of student councils within my elementary and middle schools. So I think that this contributes to a sense of experience and knowledge surrounding the responsibilities and the need for reason and logic in the formation of a student government and in the running for the student government.
So I think what sets us apart is that we really put a lot of focus on mental health. Like, I think a lot of students here in Stuyvesant probably value the grades over the mental health. And so we just want to like change that. We want to prevent anyone getting mental illness, and we really care about our freshman body, and we want to hear from everyone. And we want to really focus and hear from everyone. Even like I think a lot of times we overlook our introvert population in Stuyvesant. I think it's mostly focused on extroverts, and we want to really like encourage people to speak up and share their opinions and really give us feedback, but without having to be afraid and without having to be afraid that like people are gonna shame them. Yeah, thank you.
For our ticket, we set ourselves apart from others is because we focus mostly on internet based, and because Sty is mostly sorry to say, but like they're mostly introverted kids who have a hard time finding friends, especially in freshman year.
Yeah.
So I feel like when they're online, they can have a different persona, and they can meet more friends through it that way, and then connect in IRL.
So yeah, we run one of the freshman servers, like the smaller one, and I think what also set us apart is we were both on sports teams this year already, so we have like an understanding of how important teamwork is and how important it is to be inclusive and make sure everyone gets along. And I think that would make us good leaders because we also have previous leadership positions at
We also have a lot of experience in the field, and we have what's different from the other candidates is practicality and a sense of reasonable goals and long-term goals. So, Ayla, do you want to?
Yeah. We've done our research, and any policy that we even have on our website right now that we would like to implement, we've done our research on why the policy is in place and how we would change it, and we have a long-term plan. We face things head on, but with a long-term plan that will get things done and not waste your time as the freshman class.
Some of our policies include an open communications policy with a system of Zoom meetings, emails, Google Forms, policies such as an adapted homework policy, book swap events, movie night events, and
Yeah, and I think that one thing that's really going to help us and separate us from other campaigns is that both of us have long-term experience. I've been a part of student government for 4 years. All throughout middle school I was a part of student government, and I'm now in the student union. So I've had a long-term interest in student union, and I think that my experience puts us apart from other campaigns.
So what distinguishes us from the rest of these candidates is that we want to unify the whole freshman body. So instead of just making us two, the freshman caucus representatives, we want to make the whole freshman body into one. We want to make everyone have a say, have a part within our caucus. So how we're going to do that is we're going to do it virtually, so then nobody has a problem when they want to contribute, and then we will also do it in person by creating class representatives in our caucus, and then with this we'll unify our freshman body, and we'll basically create our own freshman empire.
Okay, so like everyone else has been saying, both of us also have experience both being leaders of clubs and on student council in our middle school. Also, our policies are very achievable. We have thought it out, and we also have done our research. But I think one of our big things is efficiency, which is one of our main pillars, is that our policies actually help each other. For example, one of our policies is that we should be let back in during freeze, but we discussed with the security guards that the issue is they don't want people roaming around the hallways. So we have a solution that actually has to do with another policy that we have about cafeteria crowds, is to make other places available for kids to be, and so instead of roaming the hallways, they would be there. Another thing is that we just genuinely want to help. I think that we both saw inconveniences in Sty. We haven't been here for that long, but we have found many benefits that we could bring. It's not about power or anything that. I think that we just genuinely want to help, and yeah.
Okay, so I think that mentioning experience at this point isn't really a unique thing. Ethan and I do have an extensive amount of experience, but we all do. In terms of what makes our ticket more unique, we want to go back to our CUBE model, CUBE. We want to talk about connection, execution. I'll pass that to Ethan for this.
Okay, so one of our main pillars is human connection, and we believe human connection is an important pillar at the moment because of how we're coming back, recovering from this pandemic scenario that we've all been put in the past 2 years. So some of our policies that address human connection is bi-weekly update videos. We know that right now the SU sends weekly update emails, which kind of addresses like the schedule, any important updates, links, things that are important towards the student body. So our idea is bi-weekly update videos, which would be kind of a more interactive way for the the student body to interact with us, as we can like kind of connect to them on a more personal level as we're in a video talking to them, just giving them updates. And then one other pillar is student communication. We know that this has been addressed before with making group chats and like making a list of links. So our idea is to just uniform this into one platform, Google Chats, which is kind of more convenient for us at the moment because of Sty email. We all have access to Google Chats, and we can all be put into this universal place where we can just talk to each other if you have any questions or comments.
All right, and speaking of the transition, what are some ways you plan to help the student body transition to an in-person environment and get them acquainted with the school building?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, sure. What are some ways you plan to help the students transition back into an in-person environment and get them acquainted with the school building? Start from the left.
Alright, so one of the methods we're going to apply in order to make us more acquainted with the school is creating these sort of guides that outline certain specific and significant areas in the school and how to traverse through it. So we are going to show perhaps study guides, material that anyone can apply, and how to do certain important things like, for example, AP registration. And we can also show some significant areas like our library right here or our auditorium that will essentially help us get through our school and be more knowledgeable of where things are. And another thing we'd like to implement is days or events that encourage students to get back into the motion of speaking to one another and having human interaction. So this contrasts from what a lot of our other candidates said, which is to emphasize online interaction, but I feel like we've already overemphasized that idea, and I think students really need a break from that, so we should.
I think transitioning back in person, we should just have more human contact. Maybe have like big group or small group for like introverts. Like we can have a big discussion and we just talk about just like what you're going through, because like everyone's gonna have a different experience and we're just gonna have different advice for each other. What one person's going through, maybe somebody else already went through it. You can also talk to more other classmates, so they can give you more advice on how to transition to high school and in person. And since we haven't been here this long, we can also like just roam around, like just check out more clubs and just establish more messenger chats with like our classmates, so we can talk more to them.
All right, thank you.
For us, we'll connect ourselves more to the student body and to the administration by doing similarly already done by SU, like weekly updates, and also very quick and efficient feedback loop. What they want us to do, we'll examine it and see how it can benefit the entire student body as a whole, and make it beneficial to all of us. If we see something we're doing wrong, fix it immediately and try to minimize the mistakes as much as possible after that.
Yeah, and I think another way that we can help students transition back into in-person is having, like, make sure that students know about the tutoring that teachers are doing, as well as having, like, the homework policy that we mentioned before, where you would, like, upload every week how long homework took you, and you understand the material, which material you think a teacher should go over more, and as well as, like, as we said before, too, having a more inclusive bond between us, such as hosting events that I think can bring us together and help us transition
That's it.
Yeah, we agree with all of our candidates that in the transition to in-person learning, it's important that we have experiences with our classmates and that we bond. But we also want to acknowledge that there were advantages to online learning, and there were things that I think everybody could take from those. For example, we plan to implement online study groups, Facebook and group chat databases, so that we can still have a connection with people online and that form of communication.
And
think adding on to that, I know throughout quarantine, many kids would host Zoom meetings with their friends and they would Zoom together and maybe study for classes. So we want to make that more mainstream for the freshman class. And on our website, which has already been created, we're going to have Zoom links, which will meet once a week for study groups, and then you can divide yourselves into breakout rooms for different classes to get help.
So for our campaign, we want to, going back to the hotspot idea, our campaign wants to like let freshmen be able to coordinate with one another and be able to decide when to like meet up during like their breaks and frees, whether it be outside or in school. And this way, like they can also have like an in-person interaction with one another, and we'd also like it if there was also a remote interaction with one another, because since we've like had 2 years of experience with remote and all of that, we'd like if we could create interactions through Discord. So basically, we'd have times where everyone can like join a voice call and they can all interact with one another and create more friends. And over these next 4 years, we'll get to know one another better.
Okay, so for us, we would start smaller and move up a ladder to bigger events. So we would start with like easier access to Facebook posts regarding clubs, sports teams, and group chats to help people start bonding and meeting new people. And then we would help people find commute buddies through a Google form that's already on our website. And we would basically link people to like similar commutes and subway stops and boroughs. And then from this, we would move even further up the ladder to like grade-wide school spirit events, such as like a gingerbread house making contest to celebrate the Christmas season. And basically, our idea for this was to have people individually or in pairs or groups pay like a couple of dollars to enter a contest where they all just build a gingerbread house, and then I guess the grade would vote on a winning group, like the Halloween costume contest, and then we would give the winning group like a holiday care gift.
Yeah, to add on just to clarify.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, so for our transition back into in-person, one of our policies is virtual note-taking, and we believe this is possible because there's the DOE's device sharing program now, and there's also the fact that they've adapted to virtual note-taking for the past 2 years. And I know personally that some teachers don't really like students using their devices to take notes, but it's more efficient for them because they can organize their information better, they can take notes faster, and we believe that it could really help students transition into what we're faced with now.
Okay, thank you. What are some ways your ticket will promote mental health or work with the SU to address these related issues, especially considering the students' calls for more attention to their well-being?
Could you repeat that again? Sorry?
What are some ways your ticket will promote mental health or work with the SU to address these related issues, especially considering the students' calls for more attention to their well-being these past years?
Alright, so one of the ideas that I touched on previously that would in turn affect our mental health and perhaps improve it significantly would be reducing our homework load. So a big stress of Stuyvesant students I've noticed in the freshman grade is their load of homework and the fact that it really isn't accurate to what is promised and ensured by teachers. So we intend to reform our homework policy so that it's more regulated and more strict on teachers. And so another idea we had was, this ties back into, again, our idea of specific events or days that emphasize mental health, and for those that are not strictly emphasizing mental health, they still give Stuyvesant students a much needed break.
For mental health, we want to have a wellness day, suicide prevention day, and LGBTQ acceptance day. For a wellness day, we think it could be like once every 2 months, where the teachers just like give little to none homework. So just like because of we have so much homework, I think just one day in like a month, a day where you can just rest, it does a lot for your mental health. And suicide prevention day, Every single day in our nation, there are an average of over 5,400 suicide attempts by young people grades 7 through 12. I think that says a lot. We want to educate people on mental health and just like increase sympathy and break the stigma surrounding it, so more people can reach out for help if they really need so. Thank you.
Sorry, before we move on, I'm just gonna put up 2 fingers when you guys have like 10 seconds or 15 seconds left. Reminder that you guys only have 60 seconds to answer each question. So, next ticket.
I think our team could help with making sure that this, our students' bodies mental health as well as we said before, I think the Google form would be very like vital in this, as we can ask students like how well they're doing with the workload and how well they're doing in general.
Okay. So the problem with STY kids is it's not really about the homework that's the issue. Sometimes teachers do give an abnormally large amount of homework. The issue is that most teachers make you self-teach. They tell you your life story, and then they don't teach at all for the majority of the class. Everyone knows that, right? Exactly. So if for the Google form, we can tell them like, hey, I don't get this, like, or something like, oh, I'm having trouble with this. Can you please reteach the class? Usually, you don't want to mention it in front of teachers because it's peer pressure. Everyone's like waiting on you're saying it. Everyone's focused on you. So that's how we're gonna help with mental health.
As well as more meetings with maybe the guidance counselor, like group meetings, like small ones. I think
A lot of the candidates have mentioned reducing the homework load, and we agree with that, and we have specific ways that we're going to do that. The first is sending a Google form to students asking how much homework they realistically get a night to gain intel on how to help enforce the homework policy. And the second is our addition that one day per semester, students are not receiving homework. So towards the end of the semester, when tests are heavy and stress is definitely higher for a lot of students, that can be eased a little bit and also help with mental health. And ideally, this number of days would be increased over time, but we know that is a difficult policy to pass, so we're starting slow.
I think another big idea when addressing the mental health crisis is human interaction. So we know that when you feel like you're a part of a community and that you're not alone, it's a lot easier to undergo hard experiences. So to make others feel like they're a part of a bigger community, we're going to introduce movie nights, book swaps, and we're also going to have game nights so that the freshman class can kind of become more unified and have fun with each other.
Okay, so our main plans to improve mental health is to make the STY, specifically in freshmen, is to make them feel more welcome to the school, because obviously it's a new experience. And as we said before, we want to make real life interaction in hotspots and online interaction with Discord. Adding on, we want to promote certain clubs that would be nice for freshmen to join, that we think can get them more interaction and more friends and like overall more experience.
And also, since exams, over homework, exams give some of us even more stress since they make up 55% to even 60% of our grade. So we want to solve this by creating study guides for exams, and we'll do this by allowing students who are already doing really well in the subject to have an opportunity to volunteer to create study guides. And we'll give incentives through partner with the student union and Irshad.
Okay, so we all know that it's a Caucus's job to represent the student body, but the Marcus U ticket also wants to help the student body feel better, and with any mental illness things, we're going to be very open. I think that we could set up a forum so that people can talk to us about their mental illnesses or problems that they have, and I think that we would always be available during our freeze if anybody needs to talk. We can set up support groups and Zooms. We'll always be available for anyone to come to us, so we're not just solving general school policies, but individual problems within people. If they need help, we'll always be there for them. Another thing we have is our commute buddies, which I think was already briefly explained, but we have a system where if you don't have someone to go to and from school with, we can set you up with somebody through a Google form, and I have a spreadsheet that I can connect people who go on similar transportation at similar times from similar places. Lastly, our study guides. We'll be personally making study guides for pretty much every subject, which will help lessen a lot of stress.
Well, there is a key reason why one of our pillars is balance, and it's because it's something that we address heavily. In terms of the homework policy, we have a pretty robust solution to regulating the amount of homework that teachers give, which is quite simple. We propose the establishment of a website, and this website is something that you can go to when you've had any assignment that's given you too much load. And we can take upon the responsibility of talking to that teacher or talking to that department's leader for you, because we understand that that may not always be an easy conversation to have, especially when you may be having your teacher for a whole semester or even a whole year. And adding on to the idea of balance is our events section. We want to make sure that there are events that are available to everyone to come to just lighten off your load a little bit, to take your mind off of academics and schoolwork. Right now, we're trying to adhere to COVID policies and make sure that everything fits within those guidelines while also creating in-person experiences that everyone can remember. So we're hoping to create things like game shows, simple trivia bowls, or teachers versus students charades, or something where you can all come to and address your competitive spirit but also have a laugh.
And finally, for general questions, how will your policies address voter apathy? And by extension, how will you get the student body to be more active in student government hosted events? Yeah, sure. How will your policies address voter apathy? And by extension, how will you get students to participate more in your hosted events?
Alright, so how I personally would address voter apathy would be through the many reforms that I actually had advertised. These are very lucrative to students themselves. I think that they really value these much needed reforms. And I think that the fact that we advertise breaks from the academic load that's placed on students and the pressure placed on us, I think that's a very, very valuable thing to students, and that will attract voters and will stomp out voter apathy.
I think that just having those policies, like making, I think one of our policies, we want to make gym uniforms optional, give you like blocker preferences, and I think it's those little things that really, it makes up a big part of your high school experience. And just like having topics like mental health and things like, I think all high school students can relate to like mental health problems, and just really if you want to just like help your mental health, just talk with people, who's gonna like really focus on those mental health problems.
On the interruption, AP Fong, please call or visit the nurse's office. AP Fong, please call or visit the nurse's office. Thank you.
To get the freshman body to participate more in the SU, I feel like we all know the thing where like it's stipends against the teachers basically. We build on our existing bonds, like let's say the deans taking away our electronics, or like the security guards won't let us in for 5 minutes before class. We build on those bonds and we create more with like games, games. It's gonna be slow in the beginning because not many people are going to join, but slowly as the months go by, where everyone's gonna come together as a family almost, and inclusive, and forget about all of our troubles through it. And our policies can really help students by basically, me and Maddie are both in sports teams. We know how it feels to like go through, just forget about all of our troubles through sports or like entertainment or like esports. So I feel like it would be really helpful to do all of these activities.
We think that students will be a lot more engaged and willing to go and excited about these events if they are more informed about them and have the opportunity to participate in their creation.
We will do this by having open Google Forms to hear student suggestions on what policies we should implement or things that they would like to see happen. And then we will also have monthly Q&A meetings with students for comments that they have on our policies that we have enforced or anything else.
Okay, so one way we want to combat voter apathy is to make freshmen a lot more involved in what's going on. So what we plan to do, send out like bi-weekly emails that inform freshmen about what's going on, and Google Forms that they can fill out to make their voice more heard, and also have them be able to send in issues that they think, like things that should be fixed in like school overall, that we can address like further.
And then also for our S pillar, we want to create stability. So we want to create, we want to make our caucus very balanced. So we'll create 3 branches of politics, basically. So us being the executive will create class representatives, which will be the legislative, and will involve everyone by taking on what they feel we should implement by making them basically the voters.
Okay, so this question has a lot to do with one of our main pillars, which is inclusion. To combat voter apathy, the rest of the positions underneath the caucus in the government would not simply be an application, but it would also be elected by the student body. And I think that the reason that we would choose this is because democracy is a much better way to have a government in terms of representation of the actual student body.
And concerning the freshman participation in school events, we would partner with Stuyvesant Red Cross or the Key Club to have freshman restricted volunteer positions at school spirit events that we would hold. And this way, students would be able to receive service hours for taking a part of the freshman body. And we would do this because we know that Red Cross events get capped very quickly.
Okay, so adding on, we have suggestions form as well to take in any opinions from the student body. And we actually held a Q&A session on our Instagram account yesterday, and we're planning on holding one tomorrow. So I already mentioned bi-weekly update videos before, and this would just incorporate more students because the information is in the video as compared to an email. So Khush is going to talk more about
just quickly before we close that. The idea of a video, you get to hear a voice. You get to connect yourself to that voice. It's very different from just reading something in an email. And we also have our events section, which we're planning on hosting in person. We feel like that's a big selling point to a lot of people. We want to have more inclusion and more general inclusion with everyone who would be more willing to turn out to an in-person event rather than a virtual event, just because of the nature of the fact that we've been home, staying by to a limited amount of events for the past 2 years. So just the ability to interact with others around you is a big key selling point, and we plan to do that through our game shows, and if we want to expand on that later when COVID policies are a little bit lighter, we plan on doing so.
Thank you. Moving on to ticket-specific questions, each ticket will have 45 seconds to answer each question, and we're going to start off with the Jahan ticket. So please explain or expand on your policy ideas and what you plan to advocate for if you're elected into office.
Alright, so starting off with our first proposal, which is the homework policy. So the homework policy is constituted on the idea that our homework that's being provided by teachers is not really accurate to the ideal. So how we address this is to create lists or specific guidelines for these teachers, including certain regulations on how many written responses we can write, how many passages there are to read, how many pages to read, and in order to address, shall we say, stubborn teachers on this subject, we need to see whether their choices in homework are intentional or deliberate, and so from there we will make reforms.
Okay, sure. In that same line, there has been a long line of other tickets in previous years that have tried to reform homework policy with mixed results. What is your guarantee to your voting population that you can make a lasting change?
Alright, so repeat that question.
Yeah, sure. There's been a long line of tickets in previous years that have pursued changes to the homework policy, and we've been met with mixed results. What is special about your homework policy, and why will that succeed where others have been?
So what I think is very distinct about my policy on homework is that it's really very much working with teachers rather than opposed to teachers. It's not like students versus teachers as you may have seen in previous years. It's mostly working with teachers to find a consensus and find an agreement.
Moving on to the Lin ticket. Please also expand and explain your policy ideas and what you plan to advocate for if you're elected into office.
Of course, just like anonymous school surveys for feedback on teachers' homework tests, and just like the site experience, Also, we want to let people people who are on crunches leave at like warning bell before the bell rings, because I've seen like few of them really get stuck in traffic, and that can be kind of dangerous. Also, gym uniforms. We want to make gym uniforms optional, and locker preferences, like just like optional locker preferences. Like if you're really tall, if you want the top locker, or you're kind of short and you want the bottom locker.
Okay, and on the voting website, one of your priorities is to hold more events for freshmen after school. Please elaborate on what sort of events that are being held, what they look like, how convenient.
For events, we can do a lot of karaoke nights, movie nights, game nights, and we want to get feedback from students, like what they want for events and what we can improve on. And we can also collaborate with many clubs, like environmental clubs, to do like projects around the school, after school, to work after school on like trash or
moving on to the Gal and Zhan campaign. Also, please expand and elaborate on your volunteer activities and what you plan to advocate for.
Yeah, so we plan to advocate, so it's not necessarily like reducing homework, like yeah, we want to do that, but more importantly, like to make sure that it's within the 30 minutes and how well you can understand the material, as well as the tutoring policy that we said before, where we want to have it like an option to be tutored within your grade instead of helping class fit, and as well as the inclusiveness policy, where we can make sure that we have a very strong like connection with each other, and instead of just separate friend groups, just one around.
Okay, and on your Insta, it says that one policy you'd like to implement is peer tutoring within the freshman class. What makes that more distinct from what Arista has to offer, and what's the assurance of quality in terms of
The thing I found with most freshmen is that they're very timid in front of upperclassmen. They find them like they look up at them and they're like, damn, they're so tall, or something like that, and they're really big, of course. But with our own peers, we find like, oh, we're in the same grade. We have something to relate to. We have similar teachers like Banfield or Dr. Tu, and you can start talking to each other about that. So basically, you can make friends through tutoring, and you guys can understand each other more, as well as ask more questions because you're not as timid as you are with upperclassmen.
Awesome. Going on to the Irshad and Goodwin campaign. Your ticket heavily prioritizes communication with the freshman class, including study groups and Zoom Q&A sessions if you are to be elected. Please elaborate on how you intend to keep the freshman class interested and involved in student government.
Yeah, so our policy for open communication starts with weekly Zoom meetings among the cabinet. So these meetings will be streamed to students to view and watch, and then once a month we will have Q&A Zooms where students can participate and ask their own questions, as well as open Google Forms for them to submit suggestions at any point. We also want to, well, like you mentioned, online study groups. Ayla, do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, we're going to have online study groups so that students can get to know each other as well as learn the material. And since the students are both in the same class or in similar classes, they are both updated on the material, and they won't have to review it as a senior would have to if they were tutoring a freshman.
And you bring up the possibility of having one day at the end of the semester with no homework. How do you plan on enforcing this when teachers following the homework policy is already an issue for attention?
So the first thing that we would do, we've spoken about this a little bit, is sending out a Google form for overall homework that each student gets each night, and we will do that again for the one night per semester where students do not receive homework. And with a compilation of data, we think that this will be more, it'll be easier to hold teachers accountable.
On to the Radwan and Sharma campaign. Your academic plans rely heavily on the students volunteering to help the entire student body, like with study guides and assignment captains. How do you plan on monitoring these activities to ensure that your plans are being carried out?
So to ensure that our plans are being carried out, obviously we always would have to check it. So we'll check it on a weekly basis. So, but the both of us will be added to those docs that students create, and since they'll be working together, there will be far less than that we have to check. So basically, like up to 40 or so, which is easily manageable, and they'll always help with the students who have specific teachers that give difficult exams.
Yeah, also adding on to Ryan, we plan to team up with Irshad to introduce incentives for students to be able to do this.
Okay. And what events do you plan to host to unite the student body?
So first of all, we'd like to host movie nights. So instead of just making it one movie, we'll make it two movies based on like student preferences. So first of all, we'll create a Google form like asking what movies people might want to watch, and then we'll select the two most popular movies. And then people will always like come together to watch movies together, and it'll be a fun experience for all of us.
Great. And onto the Marcus U ticket. Your ticket mentions that the crowded cafeteria is the main complaint of many students, and offers to designate other areas as eating spaces to help with that issue. How do you plan to keep those spaces monitored, and how would students stay COVID safe while eating?
Okay, so basically, the cafeteria already has like a cafeteria code of conduct, and we were planning to enforce that to the other designated areas so that we can keep those areas clean and organized.
And one of your policies is to have designated quiz days as we do with tests. However, some teachers like giving pop quizzes that won't fall on that designated day. How will you ensure teachers follow this new policy, and what will happen to pop quizzes?
I think that in general, pop quizzes aren't as necessary as planned quizzes. Yes, I know that they want to ensure the students are paying attention rather than having more time to study for something that they know is coming up. But if it's causing as much stress as we already have, I think that we can dispose of the whole pop quiz idea. That was never actually our intention, but if that's what comes with this policy, it's not necessarily a bad thing, and I'm sure most of the student body could definitely agree with that. I think that these quiz days will help with stress. There will still be many quizzes, there will still be many tests, but they'll be a lot more manageable.
And for our last ticket, in your platform, you mentioned that you aim to advocate for virtual note-taking in classes. The main issue that many teachers have with this is that students easily get distracted and focus on other things than the lesson. Please expand on how you intend on making this change.
Okay, so for this policy, you're kind of saying how having students virtual note take is kind of a better preparation or transition to college as we're on the brink of going. So with virtual note taking, you're kind of in your own world where you can choose what you want to do, but if you choose to study, not study, that's your choice, because you're here to learn, and it's just, you don't have to study if you don't want to, and it's more of your choice to learn.
It's the same collegiate idea where you're paying for the classes, and at the end of the day, you're going to be the one managing the way you learn. Almost every student at the school has the motive to learn and the drive to learn. And just offering this as an extended resource to them would allow them to be more productive in the manners in which they study and the ways that they take notes.
Okay, and your platform proposes to have students stay at school until 6 p.m. at least. How will you enforce this, given that many faculty members and supervisors will be unable to stay and watch over students?
I think the key part of that is the idea that many are gone, but there are still some available. Obviously, the number of students that are still going to be left at the school by this time is going to be quite condensed, as most clubs do close up shop by 5, but we're specifically trying to target a group of students who are unable to leave immediately after school, especially during winter months where you have to stand outside or you may not have somewhere to go. And this group is the S&J tour bus group who currently cannot stay in the building, but it's very difficult to stay outside in a cold place or try to find a different place to go to during this time. So just staying within the school or being able to stay with your peers is a better solution to this. And whatever limited number of staff that is still there, I believe the security staff is still stationed in the building until everyone leaves. So just extending that to a time that's probably already in place is not going to cause too much of an issue, I believe.
Okay, and now we'd like to move on to some ticket-to-ticket questions. We want to give a ticket a chance to ask another ticket a question about their policy, throw up some questions in the air. We'll start from Mo.
Or if any ticket wants to volunteer ask a question that you'd like to ask another ticket.
Sure.
Can I ask that ticket over there? They say they want kids to stay until 6 p.m., right? The school already allows kids to stay individually in school until 5 p.m. and like a lot of sports teams stay even later. Like the late practice is gonna stay all the way up to like 7:30ish. How's it any different from that?
Because people who have to leave by 5 p.m. is because they don't have any faculty advisors like directly watching them. With sports teams, they have a coach, or with like certain other teams, they have some faculty advisor that's looking out after them to make sure nothing wrong is happening. And the idea behind students having to leave at 5 p.m. is that there's no one watching them. And just elaborating on how we're going to do it, there are like, we can designate students to go to a certain area where one could be by like the first floor front desk, like from the half floor down. Because there is usually a security guard by the front desk, just like making sure nothing wrong is happening.
But even with that, right? So I'm on the fencing team, and the coach is right there. The security guards often come up and like kick us out of the building around 6 o'clock. How's that any different from that?
Because you
Around 6. That's the time that we plan on
Yes,
closing.
they kick us out. But like the thing is, you need someone to stay with you, right? Until you need to stay in a certain room and stuff.
6 p.m. is the deadline
I
of
know.
this closing.
But the thing is, you need someone to stay with you. But who's gonna be willing to do that? Which teacher's gonna be willing to do that? Stay until 6 p.m.
You never mentioned the teacher. You just said that like.
I know, but you
guard
need a
stays until
supervisor.
6 p.m.
Thank
If
you
the guard stays
for
until 6 p.m.
disengagement. Do we have any other questions?
Shoot.
I think we have one for Betty and Anthony's ticket. We were wondering what kind, because it was mentioned on your Instagram, we were wondering what kind of electronics policies you would enforce and what problems you see with the current electronics policies.
So the current electronic problems is basically should be no issues with having like one AirPod in or one side of headphones in, because even between classes in like around 10th period, because I heard like some people even when they're walking out of school they have their like AirPods on, even just one side, the deans come and take them. So I don't see there's any problem with that, because having two on is a safety hazard. Like if there's an emergency, we can when you have two on you might not hear anything, but having one on you're focused on your surroundings and you can hear like what's happening in your surroundings. So I don't see any problem with that.
Just like a better warning system instead of just like grabbing your AirPods or your phone, just maybe like taking it away, like you get a warning system, as well as being able to take notes on an iPad, because I was not able to do that in classes on a computer. So we want to change that.
Yeah, just as a note, even though you're asking each other questions, we do ask that you try and address the audience and the camera, because at the end of the day, we are trying to, show them more about the ticket. Any other questions? Okay, Goodwin.
We have a question for this ticket. I'm sorry, the Radwan Sharma. We wanted to know more about your class representatives policy, given that students have different classes for each period. So I'm wondering how you plan to do that.
So when we say class representatives, we mean homeroom representatives. So everyone has a homeroom, and when they're like every class in the whole school has a homeroom. So what we mean by class representatives is that during the next homeroom day, we'll have an election. So whoever wants to run for their classroom homeroom representative, they can run, and then everyone can vote during their homeroom within that 10-minute span. And before that day, people can start campaigning. So basically, they can basically do anything if they want. And whoever is most appealing within that homeroom, everyone else within that homeroom can discuss like their problems with that specific person, and then they can come to us and our main like overseeing office.
Can I ask a follow-up? So I guess I should specify, since we don't see our homerooms very often, how do you know that students are going to know each student well and be able to accurately represent class representative?
And just to add on, that we don't use our homerooms very often, so I'm thinking would this really be necessary?
So basically, since we're going to be able, if we get elected, we're going to create a Discord server which everyone will be able to know and interact with one another. So instead of having like interactions in person, you can do it virtually. So whoever is that representative, you can always reach out to them with any problems you may have, and you can it doesn't really matter like if you're comfortable with them or not because it's virtually and people have more ease when they talk virtually.
Okay, in the interest of time, if Lin or Jahan can leave, have any questions?
Sure. So I have a question to Radwan's ticket. So my question was, these study guides that you referred to, don't you think that the content actually learned by each period, regardless of teacher, but each period can often conflict with one another or be very variable? So how would you structure these? And would you go by period and teacher or only by teacher?
So for the most part, most teachers teach the same thing over every period. So we'll basically do it around teachers rather than periods, because periods would obviously be way too complicated and it would be very hard to manage. So we'll do it by teachers, since every teacher has around like 120 or even like 30 students. So we'll make it like that, and it'll be very easy to access. And since there's 120 students, we'll be easily able to find volunteers like who want to work together to create a study guide.
Okay.
Lillian, do you have any questions? No? Okay. Yeah, closing statements are going to last 45 seconds each. If I need to get folks to walk through the first, if not, we will follow on.
We'll just call randomly. Goodwin, Irshad.
Yeah, so we just want to emphasize that we have experience. We are prepared to be accessible to the student body through open communication and our series of policies, which we are glad to have spoken about today. And also just overall representing the class and the voices of students and equally addressing every concern.
And just to add, I think it's just to make sure that we've done our research and we're very invested in becoming your co-presidents, and we do our research for every policy that we plan to introduce to the board. So I think that's just a detail about our policy that I think separates us from others.
Okay, I wanted to just thank everybody for watching and you're listening to us debate. I also think, just for final remarks, I would like to say that in a link tree that we have posted in the bio on our Instagram and on the voting site, we have a website that we would love if you guys could check it out, because it could answer any of your questions, and we have a form for you to submit any questions and suggestions if you would like to ask more from us. And also, we are always free through any of our contacts, Instagram, any of those places to, if you want to ask us directly or during our free periods.
And
So I feel like everyone here and all the tickets are more than qualified to become Caucus president, and I feel like it'll be fine if any one of us becomes Caucus president. So you can reach out to us on Insta, or you can talk to me and like outside or like anywhere. Basically, you can stop by, ask me any questions, and I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Yeah, me too.
And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, so again, thanks to everyone who stayed around for this whole time. We just want to touch back on our key elements as a policy, as a ticket. The cube model, connection, unity, balance, and execution, that our ideas that we thought out are actually within reach and within possibility. We hope that we can actually bring them to everyone because we have these robust plans in place. We hope that we can achieve balance through all of these things, and we hope that they'll support you as you move to build connections and unity with your freshman grade. If you have any questions that you haven't feel that our ticket is answered today, we'll be hosting an Instagram live session tomorrow at 7 p.m. Feel free to join that, and we hope that we can help you connect the freshman body with your vote. Thank you.
Alright, so for closing statements, I'd just like to say that our ticket really emphasizes hearing your voice. We really take pride in the fact that we will effectively listen to your voice and enact policies.
Hello everyone, it's 5 p.m. Alright, all clubs and after school activities please pack up your belongings and head on home. All right, and we'll see everybody tomorrow for TGIF. And if you are under the direct supervision of the teacher supervisor, you can stay beyond 5 o'clock. But if you're not under the direct supervision, you must leave now and everybody get home safely. Okay, bye-bye.
I can't stay no more.
Sorry for the interruption.
And we really emphasize the student voice and encourage you all to really speak out about any concerns that you have. And please feel free to give any criticisms or comments on my ticket or any of the policies that I enact, because your voice is the most important aspect of our
Thank you guys for watching this video. We'll be hopefully posting our Google slides on the Dear Come students soon. And if you guys have any questions, you can always reach out to us on Facebook, or you can talk to us in person, and I'll be happy to talk to you guys.
So finally, we do have a Facebook page and a website where you can see our like detailed policies and specifically what we want to do, unite the freshman body and like make so that everyone feels more welcome in the school.
We hope to guide all of you to finding new interactions over this next over this school year, and who knows, you might even find the best friend you've never even known you were looking for this whole time. Okay. We want all of your freshman experiences to be very fruitful throughout the school year, and what better way to make Stuyvesant memories than with having some friends to share them with. So thanks for watching, and we hope to see you during the lectures.
Okay, thank you everyone so much. Thank you to our 7 tickets for sharing all of their ideas, their plans, what they hope to achieve if they're elected into office. As a reminder, tomorrow we will have our second debate, which will feature 7 new tickets. You can check out all of these tickets and all the tickets to the debate tomorrow on their website, www.science.org, which you will also be using to vote on this upcoming Wednesday. We do hope that you all vote, if you are a freshman, obviously, because voter apathy is a big issue and we're trying to fix it. Yeah, but thank you all so much for coming. We do ask that everyone please exit the library as soon as possible just so we can clean up, so we can let Mr. Paulson go home. So thank you all so much for coming.
I might have questions for all of you guys by email.
Cool, yeah. If you're, yeah,
So, over the weekend, we prepared for lots of questions.
Okay, make sure to bring the majority of your chairs back to that section. So there's like...
My 2 chairs, you gotta move my
Nobody says, Otto and like, what's it called? Otto and Allison, right? Right outside of the shopping bar. Nobody stays on the 6th row.